everybody, my name is Jason Wright and welcome to this Cisco TV episode for Hybrid Work Meets Firewall, boosting your security in the age of remote work. And that is what we're doing today. We are so excited to be back in the studio, back in the Cisco headquarters here. And we're going to talk about exploring some of the new firewalls that we have that are going to help you fend off that malware, ransomware, and those other threats that you're going to need to have to keep your workers safe and productive in this age of kind of moving back and forth between where we work. So I've got a few friends joining us today. First of all, Andrew Osipov, he's the Distinguished Engineer, CTO for Network and Cloud Security. Then I've got Justin Buchanan, who is a Senior Director of Product Management. And then a special guest, Henry Wang, who is a Principal Consultant from over at Forrester, talking about firewalls. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, being on the show today. It's going to be a great episode. So before we jump in and get started, I wanted to let everybody know that we're going to be running polls and allow you to ask questions in the background powered by Slido. So if you want to use this QR code that we have here, you can hit that and that'll pop you over to our website that'll allow you to interact with us and have some conversation. So ask us some questions and we'll take some polls to see what you think and have some of that information. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk about what's been going on. As you all know, there is probably no going back to the way things used to be. There is that old way and there's the new way is hybrid work. And that's what we're looking forward to. And that's what we are going to be embracing after a couple of years of the pandemic that we've been going through. But it's turned out to be kind of a blessing in disguise in a lot of aspects. First of all, it's like 62% of employees are thinking that they're going to be able to work from anywhere and that's going to impact how they work and where they work in the future, whether they stay with those organizations. So I think only about a quarter of the employees are saying that their company was very prepared. So even the employees are saying, well, more needs to be done. So when we talk about those work arrangements, we want to explore some of the research that we've done. There's also notable differences across a lot of different categories when we talk about how people are feeling about remote work, right? There's definitely some mixed emotions. There's some goods and some bads, some pros and cons, right? But we've seen that across mental and physical and financial and social well-beings, the majority, almost 2/3, are saying that their mental well-being has improved and that their social well-being is at least as the least improved, with about a little less than half believing that social well-being has improved, right? So another third are saying that it hasn't changed. I personally have really been able to embrace the new way of life, and it's given me an opportunity to focus on exercise and all that. Definitely needing it these days. So that's been a great improvement in the way that we're going to look at hybrid work going forward. Now, when we look more deeply into the different areas of what's being studied, there's some interesting insights that can be gained for employers. Number one, as employers and employees, they're both recognizing the benefits of hybrid work. This is definitely going to be the way things are going forward, right? So in our recent global workforce survey that Cisco performed, we found that over half of office workers anticipate that they'll be working 8 or more days from home each month. So that's about 1/3 of the month. Some of us will be working, one set of days from home while others are in the office and vice versa. So there's just going to be this mismatch, people coming and going. It looks like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are popular days to get into the office. Mondays and Fridays very convenient to be at home. So it's estimated that 98% of the meetings that we're having will include some participants joining from home at some point, right? So for many enterprises, letting everyone work from home, it's not quite as easy as it sounds. We weren't quite prepared for that. There were some remote capabilities, but it was a big switch and a big change and adjustment. So all of this introduces a whole new set of challenges for IT organizations, especially a cybersecurity team, because those employees will be accessing critical files and resources remotely. So what we've done is brought in Henry Wang to talk to us a little bit about some interesting findings that he's had. He's a principal consultant from Forrester on the firewall, as we said earlier, and other technologies, but he's going to talk about a total economic impact study that he has performed. So Henry, tell us a little bit about what kind of findings you got doing this research.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Jason. So great to be here, number one. Number two, again, my name is Henry Wang from Forrester, and here to talk about the total economic impact that we performed recently for Cisco Secure Firewalls. Now, before we get into the meat of things, I think it's important that we kind of just discover what total economic impact is all about, right? So let's start with methodology. Total economic impact, or TEI for short, is what Forrester uses to prove out what we do on technologies and what they can provide in terms of value to organizations. Now, how do we do this? Well, we take a two-pronged approach, right? We first leverage our deep research and knowledge that we have in technology spaces, right? And number two, we take an empirical approach by looking at surveys, interviewing customers, and leveraging all that data back together. Once we have that data, we calculate things and we input additional factors like what-if scenarios, as well as risk factors that impact the variability of the benefits and the costs that might happen. So, given that, when we combine all of it together, the TEI is really a holistic picture in terms of what we can show on a case study. You combine benefits, costs, risks, and what-if situations. Now, you might be asking, how do we get to this, right? And really, it's pretty simple. For this particular case study, we talked to 10 different Cisco customers who conveyed their experiences on their network security. Now, this set of customers is really diverse. We had 10 different organizations from various different industries, 7 different industries, in fact. And they range from 750 employees all the way up to 275. We're talking about behemoth. 275,000 employees, behemoth organizations, right? So we really pressed down onto this with the customers and asked about their experiences in terms of what was it like before, what was it like after, and what has it been as they moved more towards the cloud and accommodate to the hybrid work schedule. All right, so all of this culminates into some of the figures that you might see on the screen right now. ROI of 195%, a net present value benefits of 18.6 million over 3 years, and of course, a net present value accounting for costs and risks and all those factors of 12.3 million. All right, so I've given you the bottom line figures. I think it's important that we actually go into some of the drivers, right? And some of the metrics that really accounted for the 195% that you're seeing. So let me be very brief on this. What we saw from the Forrester perspective was that the network security pieces from Cisco was very well integrated. So what you have is you have the virtual pieces, right? You have the physical appliances, you have the VPN, you have the XDR from SecureX, and finally you cobble it all together with the FMC. Which is the Firepower Management Center, right? And you can control all of that, and that really culminated into an improved automation and efficiency setup, as well as improved efficacy for threat detection. Now, what that results in is a reduced operation effort and also security response times. So obviously, incident response, IOCs, those are being addressed a lot faster. Now, all of this leads to a lower chance of a major breach. And we don't want to be in the news, obviously, for most of these organizations, right? So wrapping this up, this comes back to the NPV of 12.3 million and 195% ROI, along with a payback period of just under a year. So back to you, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, that last part that you were talking about where the ROI is like 10 months, under a year, that's fantastic. We talk about security as being a cost center all the time, but here we're showing where we can actually save ourselves money because it is at least a necessary evil, but here we're able to generate an ROI saving. So I thought that was great data. All right, thanks for putting that together. So next we're going to talk to Andrew Osipov. He's our distinguished engineer and a CTO for network and cloud security, super smart guy. He's going to talk about the new Cisco Secure Firewall 3100 series that we've recently introduced. So Andrew, tell us about this fascinating new hardware.
Well, thanks, Jason. If you think I'm smart, you should meet my sister.
We'll have her on the show next time.
Absolutely. So hello, folks, and I'm here today to talk about our next generation hardware. Now, I tell you, Jason, customers don't generally like to upgrade hardware. It's probably about as much fun as me saying, hey, just going to buy a new car, right? The end result's fun, but the getting there process.
I don't think anybody's been waiting for the pandemic to end so they could go
That's
rip
exactly
and replace
right.
their
And this is exactly why about a year ago we released our Secure Firewall 7.0 software, which took the software architecture and optimized on that first.
Yeah.
And it delivered up to, and in many cases more than, double the performance on the existing hardware platforms. So we did that first, again, knowing that our customers, you folks, do not like to upgrade the hardware too often and for no good reason. But at some point, obviously, we have to look at the hardware evolution and match that great new software with great new hardware. And this is where the Cisco Secure Firewall 3100 series comes in. So what's really special about this particular platform? Well, first of all, it's built all about encrypted traffic. We're talking hybrid work, new applications, new way of accessing those applications. All that traffic has to be confidential, has to maintain integrity, privacy, so it is typically encrypted. So this platform, the architecture is all about the encryption. And we get a lot of industry first claims out there, right? Industry first firewall with a blue faceplate. You haven't heard that one before, right? But in all seriousness, right, this is the industry first firewall with the inline crypto engine.
All right.
And I'm getting a little bit deeper in the architecture, right? And for those of you, shameless plug, I'm doing a Cisco Live session next month. I'm going to be talking a lot deeper about the block diagrams and all that. But this new cryptography engine design essentially puts that encryption, decryption aspect of things directly into the data path. So you don't have to go back and forth, look aside, use external components as much. It's right there in the data path. And that's what gives it, and we'll look at the numbers later on, it gives it incredible. And look, I'm an engineer. It's hard to get me excited too much, but I'm truly excited about this one, right? Truly mind-blowing performance numbers for the encrypted traffic. So that's one, obviously the hardware. Then there's a software. We recognize not all traffic can be or should be decrypted. So we are building in machine learning-based tools, all in-house developed. We didn't just take something open source out there and slap it in. This is all in-house technology to detect applications, detect even malware in encrypted traffic without having to decrypt it. And that's a huge performance boost. It's sort of the way I see it. It's directing limited resources, because let's be real, no matter how powerful the firewall hardware is, you are dealing with finite resources. Right. So directing those resources into the traffic that matters, that traffic that presents the most potential threat for your network, and that's what we do in the software. And last but not least, the new automation options, the new management experience, whether it's privately deployed, where it's cloud managed, all this nicely wrapped appliance mode where it's one box, comes up, got scripts to do zero trust provisioning, all kinds of automation to plug it into bigger picture of your software-defined infrastructure. So all that is packed into this one nice one rack unit box. So let's see where that fits into the overall hardware portfolio. So naturally, 3100, we say it's a new mid-range offer. Logically would follow its goes to replace the existing Cisco Secure Firewall 2100 series. And if you look at that diagram, pretty much, or this lineup, that's pretty much where it fits, right? But if you look at the performance numbers, that range is super wide. So obviously, it does way better for the mid-range than 2100, but it also goes all the way into the higher end 4100. And that's a testament to this particular new architecture. It's so scalable that it ranges all the way from, hey, we can do way better on the mid-range, we can do even a little bit of the high end, but again, that's the evolution of the hardware architecture. Yeah. But one number really stands out is the encrypted traffic handling. Right. So IPsec, DTLS, stuff that you use for remote access VPN, and protocols you use to access your applications over the internet in your data center. Accelerating this traffic, again, is super big on this platform, and that range truly blows my mind, right? So let's dig a little bit deeper and look at those numbers at a little bit more depth. So I said earlier, I don't get excited very easily. Usually when I talk to my engineering team, it's them bringing me something, and I look at it and I try poking holes in it on behalf of my customers, of course, and we could have done better, right? When are we going to do this? Well, this one, when they came to me with those numbers, I couldn't say anything, right? Just numbers speak for themselves, right? And just looking at this comparison between the 21 and the 3100 series, I mean, it's pretty incredible, right? You got up to 7 times improvement in the clear text, firewall, application visibility, intrusion prevention, throughput. That's key. But then as you get into crypto, into encrypted traffic inspection, VPN, those numbers just go through the roof. I mean, you're talking almost, not almost, 17, 14 times. I was going to say almost 20. I realized that, as an engineer, I shouldn't call 17 times almost 20, but it's there, right? And then you get to look at those crypto numbers, and one number that really matters is the single flow, single tunnel throughput for VPN. And when you look at those numbers, we're doing up to 31 gigabit per second in a single tunnel on a mid-range platform. That's carrier-grade numbers. And it's not just we decrypt, encrypt. This is full stateful inspection. This is sequencing for the VPN tunnels. Very important for hybrid work because the quality of your connection as you connect to your VPN headend, that would differ. You could be sitting at a hotel room. Well, there's a whole bunch of other people at this hotel accessing their network, their VPN, so maybe some packet loss, some out-of-order traffic. You could be at home, high-speed connection, all flawless, right? So we should be able to support all that, and we do that in our VPN implementation. And again, single tunnel numbers, that's carrier-grade numbers. On a mid-range platform, we have a lot of the firewalls out there that cannot do that much even across all the VPN tunnels. We do it with a single VPN tunnel. So again, the architecture, that inline crypto engine I keep raving about, it's really a new industry-first approach to how we integrate crypto traffic handling into the security path. But let's get back to the topic here. We're talking hybrid work. So we already said hybrid work is about users being anywhere, right? People being at home, again, reliable VPN connection, folks being on the go, like some of us here in this room. I gotta say, things hit a lot different when you're in person. This couch, Jason's hat, Justin's aftershave, right? And it's a nice thing to be around people, nice thing to be out there. But again, your internet connection, working from home for 2 years, I know exactly how my home network works. All reliable Cisco gear, no surprises. You go to a hotel, go to a coffee shop, things may be different. So in addition to supporting 20,000 remote access sessions, millions of concurrent connections for your users from campus, from everywhere going to places, it is all about the sequencing for VPN, right? It's not just getting a high performance. It's about how you handle that. Do you protect against packet injection attacks? Do you handle situations where there will be packet loss? So all that is there in this platform, built into the hardware, enhanced by the software. It takes care of it for you on the back end. But then when we say hybrid work, I think we need to also talk about the applications. Because the last 2 years didn't just change the way that users connect to applications. It's also how the applications are deployed. Gone are the days of dingy old data centers, couple of racks, a little spider web in a corner. It's private data centers, it's co-location facilities, it's public cloud. Collectively, I like to refer to this, all of us, hybrid cloud. Proliferation of cloud-native applications, from video conferences to real-time trading to databases to whatever you call it, front-end, back-end applications. They use new kinds of protocols. There is TLS 1.3, there is HTTP 2, there is QUIC. So all those applications, they evolve very, very quickly. And the platform, both hardware and software, is built to support the inspection, the security of all those different protocols, being able to block all kinds of threats that come across those. So yeah, that's part of the hybrid work as much as the users being all over the place, being able to support those hybrid applications. And last but not least, well, it's okay, I bought the firewall, great. I bought it based on maybe tomorrow's needs. Well, my business took off. And now I have 5 times as many users, 5 times as much traffic going through. So what do? So we offer solutions like clustering, for instance, something that was previously only available to our high-end firewall customers. We brought that technology into the 3100 series as well. So you can pay as you grow. You can stack multiple hardware firewalls to build a single logical firewall. And it's all seamless. Once you add a new unit to the cluster, it joins automatically. It's fully distributed. You don't get a hiccup on the traffic. You don't have to schedule a total outage for your maintenance window. So that's built in. The ability to pay as you grow from port density, we go all the way from 1 to 10 to 25 to 40 gig interfaces with clustering on top. That gives you the ability to build much larger logical firewall units than just what your hardware allows you to do. And the 1RU form factor is your unit of failure. You don't want to have an 18 RU box fail and you out all this capacity. You want to do the N+1 redundancy like we do with clustering and be able to process all that traffic without having a lot of the hardware capacity sitting idle. So again, I'm very excited about this new hardware. It's definitely defines a new direction in the industry for the inline crypto, but it also makes our new software truly shine and deliver on those hybrid work outcomes the customers are looking for.
So this is pretty much one of our early attempts at moving with the market and the world as it changed through this pandemic, and seeing what we can do in terms of hardware to build a hybrid work-based firewall. Would you say that's fair enough?
That's absolutely fair. And I would say not only we are moving with the industry, we are leading the industry in some of those software and hardware features. We define how the firewalls of the future would operate. And again, I'm super excited to be a part of that.
I love it. And I know there's more to it than just the hardware and just that speed and 17 to 20-ish times performance that we talked about. Massive numbers. But what we're going to talk about next is some of the other feature sets that are built into the new operating system that runs on these hardware devices. So we've got Justin Buchanan, our Senior Director of Product Management for Network Security, over here at the end. He's going to talk to us about that 7.2 release that's going to coincide with this 3100 series release. Justin, tell us a little bit about some of the new features that we get out of this.
Very excited about 7.2 release. A lot of good work, a lot of innovation has gone into it. You know, we spoke about the performance throughput. Andrew already spoke about that. You know, 17 times VPN throughput, which is just incredible, right? You know, and Andrew mentioned it before, right? We continue to innovate, even from a hardware perspective, in software, right? And so in 7.2, we brought all this performance into the 3100. Super excited about that. We also have VPN certificate.
There's definitely a cert in there somewhere.
VPN certification and SAML authentication, right? That's a mouthful. So basically what we're doing here is we're looking at certificates and SAML authentication that have been added in Secure Firewall Management Center to configure VPN connections and really profiles for certificate and SAML authentication. And again, back to hybrid work, right? You know, we know customers are going to be coming in through VPN. We know that we're going to need better authentication, right, as they VPN in, and this is really one of the many things that we're doing to enable hybrid work. And so really what we're doing is we're saying, hey, listen, you know, we have this certificate before the SAML authentication is initiated, and we can do this, right, using attributes that go along with user-specific SAML attributes, right? And so again, this is important as we look at how do we really add security around those VPN authentications. Elephant flow throttling, this is something that customers, as part of the beta, we're really excited about, right? And what is an elephant flow? Basically, it's an extremely large flow that takes up a lot of bandwidth, right? And so what we want to do is be able to actually take those flows and that are larger than 1 gig or 10 gigs, and we want to be able to offload those or really put those around the Snort engine, right? Because we put too much in the Snort engine, potentially we can have some CPU hogging. And so really identifying these elephant flows and being able to, you know, put them through the firewall in the right way is a big feature that our customers have been looking forward to. HA cluster upgrade and improvements. And so, you know, Andrew talked about HA and clustering. And so we know that customers are moving towards this type of architecture. Andrew talked about it, pay as you grow, right? You know, you may have additional needs in your networks today. You need more firewalls. You want to cluster them, right? And so what we do now is an upgrade wizard that can correctly display clustered and high availability units, right, as groups rather than individual devices. So instead of having 4 units, you have a single clustered group. And then we can identify, report, and potentially preemptively require a fix for group-related issues that you may have. And so, for example, today you cannot upgrade a cluster of firepower 4100s or 9300s if you've made unsynced changes in the firepower chassis manager. And so we've improved this speed and efficacy of this by copying the upgrade package to the clusters and high availability pairs. Previously in the FMC, it copied the package to each group and member sequentially. But now you can get that package from each member of the group and as part of their normal sync process. You can also specify the upgrade order of the data units in a cluster. The control unit will always be upgraded last because it is the one that's obviously processing the traffic. Moving back to hybrid work in a sense, right? Public cloud and virtual clustering. So we know that today organizations, they rely on a mixture of physical, virtual, and quite frankly, cloud control points to meet their security network needs, right? We know that our customers need the flexibility in deploying these different physical and virtual firewalls across a wide range of environments, while still maintaining consistent policy across their branch offices and corporate data centers. For data center consolidation to office relocations, mergers and acquisitions, as well as peaks in demand, right? Cisco's virtual firewall portfolio helps you simplify security with convenience of unified policy and the flexibility to deploy, quite frankly, everywhere. EIG configuration, EIGRP configuration via the GUI. This is one of Andrew's favorites. I know we were talking about this earlier. And so, what we actually did is we deprecated the flex config objects. And what we did now is you can configure EIGRP routing from FMC web interface. And while this may sound like not a big deal, I think it really kind of shows from a broader perspective what we're trying to do to simplify configuration in general, right? Continual UX improvement. How do we make it easier for our customers to deploy those features that they really, really need? Access control policy lock. So here, you can look at a policy, prevent other administrators from editing it. This is another one that came through in beta, to be quite frank, right? Making sure that those changes will not be invalidated if another administrator or user comes in, and save your changes before you can actually save your changes. Moving on. Now, this is the part that Andrew mentioned before. I'm super excited about. Stay tuned. We actually have more after this. But we look at, Encrypted Visibility Engine and TLS 1.3. These are two really, really interesting features that are released in 7.2. And while in 7.1 we did have some EVE capability, in 7.2 we're really going beyond with Encrypted Visibility Engine and giving customers the ability to now understand what the encrypted traffic is, create potential policies based upon that encryption, and with TLS 1.3, if they want to decrypt, they can do that, quite frankly, as well. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Jason.
Well, that's a couple of great features that I think you saved the best for last in that conversation with Encrypted Visibility Engine, and that's something we've experimented with in other security technologies prior, but now we're bringing it to our firewall as a standard feature and functionality. But a lot of those other ones you're hearing and seeing, I am at least, about how we're focusing on some of these scenarios for hybrid work that are important and starting to build feature sets to support that kind of arrangement and in that mid to low high end range right there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for walking us through all of that. So I'm super excited about that. And after this, we're going to go over to David McGrew, who is a Cisco fellow, and he's going to talk a little bit more about that Encrypted Visibility Engine and how we are able to recognize attacks with or without decrypting that technology. So I'll turn that over to David.
Hi, I'm David, and I'm going to be telling you today about the Encrypted Visibility Engine. EVE gives you insight into encrypted traffic without decrypting it. Now, most traffic on the internet today is encrypted. Some of that traffic you don't want to decrypt because of privacy considerations. Now, other traffic you can't decrypt for technical reasons because it uses certificate pinning or because you haven't been able to deploy a certificate onto the endpoint. So there's going to be this traffic that you don't want to decrypt or you can't decrypt, and EVE gives you insight into what's going on in that traffic. And it does that by extracting and analyzing metadata from the handshake of the encrypted session. So at a high level, this is very much like reading the addresses on the outside of an envelope without opening the envelope and reading the letter, right? So EVE identifies the client application, that is the application that started the session, and it does this using a sophisticated fingerprinting system that uses data from the packet sent by the client, along with information about the destination server that's also in that packet. And in this way, it determines the software that initiates the connection, and it reports a confidence score about how confident it is in that determination. So Eve also reports a threat score that represents the probability that the session is associated with malware. And we have an extensive database of malware that's obtained from Cisco Secure Threat Analytics. And that's how we identify the sessions associated with malware threat. So Eve was introduced into 7.1 as an experimental feature. And at that time, it only analyzed TLS sessions. But now with 7.2, it also analyzes quick sessions as well. Quick is a new encrypted transport protocol that has been embraced by a number of vendors, and it hasn't really been embraced by malware authors yet. But with Eve analyzing quick sessions, we're now in a really good position when the malware authors do embrace quick. So to see what Eve actually does, let's go to the Firewall Management Center and watch a short video made by my colleague, Eric Kostlin. So going into the unified event, Eve results are displayed for each session. So we see the most common Eve detected client processes and the distribution of threat scores, which were almost all very low, which is good. And you can see that then in the columns here, the encrypted visibility process confidence score is the probability the determination of the application was correct. The encrypted visibility process name is the name of the identified process. The encrypted visibility threat confidence being very low here. We're looking at all the applications. We can also look at the particular, we can look for malware. All malware is identified by the name underscore malware, which represents any malware observed inside of the threat grid data. And threat grid, of course, is now Cisco Secure Threat Analytics. This gives you a quick overview of Encrypted Visibility Engine and why we're excited about the things it can find in encrypted traffic. That concludes my talk for today. Thank you for your attention.
All right, thanks so much, David. So next we're going to hear from Eric Kostlin, who you heard mentioned in there. He's one of our technical marketing engineers, a good buddy of mine that we work with a lot at Cisco Live and RSA, which, by the way, not such a shameless plug, since we're going to be featuring all of this stuff at both of those conferences. So we hope you have a chance to join us there. Before we jump into that, though, I would be remiss if I didn't remind everybody that we still have these Slido polls and Q&A sessions open. Go ahead and pop into that URL, and you'll be able to ask some questions that we'll get to at the end of the show, and join us for some polls to share information so that we can keep making these products better for you. That's what we're here to do. Okay, so next we've got Eric Kostlin, who's going to talk to us about the integration that we have with these technologies and how we're able to integrate not just with SecureX, very important, available for any security customer of Cisco. You can start using that today if you like. But also with some of our cloud providers. So I talked with Eric earlier. Here's what he had to say.
Cisco SecureX is Cisco's extended detection and response platform. It integrates the products across our security portfolio. Each product in our portfolio has a ribbon, a little widget that allows you to see the context of the event that you're studying and cross-launch into other products while maintaining that context. There is a dashboard, as you see in this slide. This is customizable, built from widgets that you choose from the various security products and present in a way that is most meaningful to the administrator. There is threat response, which shows how the products in our security portfolio have identified elements associated with that security event on our various products. And it allows you from a single administrative screen to take action on multiple products. Now, that's manual response. We also have orchestration, and we get device insights, which essentially can give you a snapshot of devices associated with the event that you're investigating. Now, orchestration is really key to maximizing operational efficiency. Otherwise, you have a large collection of possibly complex, repetitive tasks. It's easy to accidentally omit one, and it's certainly painful to try to do a more complex response to a threat. With the orchestration, we take in SecureX this complicated combination of tasks that are taking place across multiple security products and infrastructure components and build it into what's called a workflow. We provide many workflows, and we also allow you to customize, create your own workflows. These workflows can be run periodically, automatically, or you could run them manually, but now with a single keystroke. As far as the firewall evolving as SecureX evolves, we're really very much focused on simplifying the experience of enabling SecureX, which is a free product, but it's tied into your smart license account, to onboard devices into SecureX, as well as to import workloads that you can then utilize to protect your environment. Examples of some of the new workloads include proactively monitoring the health of the firewalls through the firewall management centers, also streamlining pcert analysis to see if any of your devices require patches, and automatically checking your firewall policies to see if there are any time-based rules that are about to time out. Now, moving to the multi-cloud environment, we, of course, support the standard hypervisors for the private cloud, but also we support the so-called hyper-converged infrastructure, such as HyperFlex and Nutanix. In the public cloud realm, we're constantly adding new public cloud providers, but we also have formed strategic partnerships with the multi-cloud facilitators such as Equinix and Alkira. Now, with every release, there are sets of new features. Here are some of them listed below, so that our product co-evolves as the public cloud and multi-cloud environments evolve. Now, it's important to be able to base policies on attributes. Your public clouds and SaaS providers typically associate attributes to devices, and IP addresses really aren't that reliable. In private cloud, you have VMware attributes as well as attributes coming from your ACI fabric. We have attributes coming from Secure Workload or SecureX. And for quite a while, we've had dynamic attributes coming from the Identity Services Engine that can be utilized in firewall policy. Now, this is an open API for these attribute-based policies, so you can create your own custom attributes. So now, what exactly is a dynamic attribute? It's really a set of IP addresses associated with an object. These could be IPv4, IPv6, some combination of sitters and single IP addresses. And these dynamic attributes are presented by a number of sources, your public cloud providers, your private cloud, and so forth. These are aggregated into what's called the Cisco Secure Dynamic Attribute Connector, or CSDAC. CSDAC could be a VM running on premise, or it could be a cloud-provided service. It is polling these sources of information, and if it sees a change, it will contact the firewall management center that is managing the appropriate firewalls, and those firewalls' behavior will be updated immediately based upon the change in IP addresses observed by CSDAC. So let's do a quick demonstration of how this all looks. Here's our management center, and notice we don't currently have any dynamic objects because this is the beginning of the demo. Let's go to CSStack. We can see we've already got CSStack configured to get a lot of information from a lot of sources. In particular, I connected it with a simple access key to my AWS account. So it is consuming information from AWS, from vCenter, Office 365 IPs, as well as my Azure account. Now, currently, we're giving that information to 2 firewalls, but not the one I showed you. Now let's look at the firewall that I showed you. It's very simple to set up the communication. We just give it the FQDN, we give it some credentials that we set up on the firewall, and well, let's make sure we're talking to the right firewall. There, the certificate looks good, and that's it. If we go back to the firewall, we're going to immediately see, wow, we have over 800 dynamic attributes, including one I already created to identify my jump boxes, public and private IP, in Amazon. But I want to show you by hand how we would do this, say, for web servers. So here, let me create something called AWS Web Servers using my AWS account. And this is going to be a tag called function, which is set to, this time, web server, not jump box. As soon as I do that, I see the web server in my management center. You can see the public and private IP of that AWS web server. Now that we have the attribute, we can create a policy role utilizing that attribute. So for demonstration purposes, let's just block outbound connections from our web servers. So there's outbound. Now here's the key, the dynamic attribute that we created. There it is, AWS web servers. And we might as well log attempts to make these outbound connections. There we go, and we have our policy. Now, to show the dynamic aspect of this, let's start with a server that is not blocked because it's not tagged as a web server. You can see we're allowing outbound connections. Let's go to AWS and let's tag it. So let's set the function tag equal to web server. I'm not going to touch the firewall. I'm not going to touch the management center. I'm simply going to wait for CSStack to discover this change, tell the management center to tell the firewalls to start blocking the IP address associated with this VM. And as you can see, it's blocked. Now, we don't have to go to the management center, but I just wanted to show you that, sure enough, we now have more IP addresses representing that new web server. And that concludes my demonstration. Thank you very much for your time.
Outstanding. Well, I love hearing about SecureX. I love hearing about integration. I really think it's one of the things that we've brought to the table and that I personally enjoyed evangelizing about for quite some time. It's not just that we're building a bunch of different products. So we're building a bunch of different products that communicate and talk and work as an ecosystem and work with other third-party integrations as well. So I love to see us moving down that road. One last reminder that we've got the Slido website available. If you want to ask some questions, that's a place to do it. We've got a handful here, but we're going to run right up until the amount of time that we have. So get them in if you have them. This will be our last chance for it. But I want to go ahead and start off with one of the questions that came out. One that we probably should have talked about, or I should have asked about, which is what's going to happen to the 2100 series now that the 3100 series is out? Is that going to end of life or replace, or how does that all work?
I'll probably give it a shot, and then Justin, we can collectively offer an opinion. So look, folks, the way I like to say it, the 3100 is the new mid-range architecture. So logically follows that the current mid-range 2100 is a lot closer to that end-of-life point than it was back when we launched it, what, 5 or so years ago.
Yep.
Having said that, it's always a transition period. We have customers with that hardware certified. We have customers just kind of comfortable with the architecture, with the performance. So it's not like they just disappear. It's going to be a transition period, but eventually, as with everything else, the brand new, much better thing will eventually replace the good, but the current thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. Obviously, we do take a look at, how that migration occurs, where our customers are, work with everybody out there to make sure that you have a path forward. So, yeah.
So I guess net is we've end-of-life products before. We're not going to leave anybody hanging. Don't worry.
We've done this more than once. We've introduced new hardware, and the other one goes away.
Not our first rodeo.
Right.
But still, that's only one rodeo. So let's talk about the future of next-generation firewall in general. How do we see that evolving? We've spent a little while talking about our hybrid work variation that we've created and that we've made an effort for. What do we see maybe further down that road and down other roads that exist?
We want to defer to the analyst on this one and get his take, or?
Well, I got some take on this, but I would prefer that you guys speak of it first, as I don't want to give too much.
Right. We'll see if it matches up.
Okay.
So I mean, as we saw with the 3100, right? We know that there's still a need for physical boxes. We do know that customers, again, they're going to transition, right? And so how do we provide firewall functionality independent of where that data is located, whether it be public clouds, private clouds, or hybrid, even for hybrid work. And so, we really need to evolve with how companies are evolving today, and making sure that, quite frankly, we can meet the needs of customers. Andrew, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, for sure. And I would add a little bit to that. Look, firewall is a function, not a device. I like to think it that way. For the longest time, we've been saying next generation firewall. Well, maybe it's just me, but 15 years later, it's no longer next generation. It is just a firewall. So we got to define what comes next.
Every firewall out there meets the criteria of next generation.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be hard pressed to find a last generation, somebody giving you a last generation firewall. Nobody likes to talk about that, right? So to me, firewall evolves into that function which combines network, but also other aspects of security, including application security, including endpoints. So, and it's not something that we make a big secret of. We like to lead the industry. Again, one more shameless plug. About a year ago, I published a blog outlining exactly how we are thinking about the evolution of firewall. It goes from pervasive deep packet inspection, kind of being the sole warrior as one control at the network, that point in time, point in the network checkpoint, into cooperating with other pieces of Cisco ecosystem. It's the secure endpoint, it's the secure workload, it's our SASE cloud story. All those different instances of Cisco security presence, they feed data back into the firewall and helps it make the decisions without having to unpack every packet. Inference-based detection is another big thing. That's what we talked about with Eve. How do we go from, again, decrypting everything, looking at everything with a magnifying glass, to making more decision based on the behavioral-based header analysis, something that kind of describes what it is without, again, having to look inside of it. That's really the big picture for how we see the firewall evolving.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, how do we make everything that Andrew talks about, how do we make it easier for customers to consume, right? How do we have a UX that is simple enough that you don't need an expert to do, but also allows that expert, right, to turn those knobs when they need it. And I think that's a big focus for us as well.
Yeah, so I think you guys hit the nail on the head on a couple of these pieces, right? You said it was all about function on firewalls. It's not necessarily just an appliance, right? And Justin over there, you said it's all about connecting on different points, right? Whether it's public cloud, private cloud, what have you. And what we're seeing these days is that a lot of organizations are increasingly becoming dependent upon east-west traffic control, right? It's not just the outer side, it's inside as well. Because once you penetrate in, you're game over, right? So we're seeing a lot of virtual firewall appliances come to life. And of course, cloud and all these other points, right? That all these junctures where data passes through. And I think that's really important. So that's where we think it's going.
All right, great. So another question that's come in, a lot of questions about the future and what's next, and so glad to have my oracles here. So
at RSA and Cisco Live.
Yes, that will be the future. Right? So tell us a little bit about the integration roadmap with Firewall and SecureX. Eric did a good job of talking about it a little bit at a high level. I know we can't, flash up roadmap slides in detail, but high level, what are we thinking as a strategic vision?
Ultimately, SecureX is a core piece of our security portfolio. Firewall is a core piece of our security portfolio, and so bringing those pieces together is, something that we should look to do. How that happens and when that happens, you know, it kind of remains to be seen, but certainly it makes a lot of sense.
All right, great. Last one I've got for us here is tell us a little bit about what unified security management will look like for Cisco, a CDO or SecureX, or is it something new? Maybe a bit of a strategic roadmap question regarding our management decisions.
So I think I'll take that, and just you feel free to add. So the topic of management in general is extremely important to us, and you saw some of the features that Justin talked about in 7.2 specifically relates to the better operational experience. Because eventually, management console is what is in front of you. Like, you don't care what the box looks like back in your data center, back in whatever, in your co-location facility. It's all about how you consume those features. CDO obviously is our cloud-delivered SaaS, if you will, firewall manager. A lot of customers consume firewall management that way. A lot of customers continue to consume it through the privately deployed firewall management center. And we are making those experiences as close to each other as possible. So essentially, customer, when they go and consume it through the cloud, or they will go and consume it through the privately deployed management appliance, you don't have to learn everything from scratch. You get all those kinds of seamlessness and the basically same look and feel, same functionality, extensibility, so you can go back and forth. There's also another aspect I'm going to tease a little bit, and that's the aspect we're looking into on unified management beyond just one device. All of our customers deploy multiple security controls between their users and apps, and apps and apps, or east-west, like Henry said, critically important, right? There is network firewall workload, and you do want to create a single intent-based, if you will, policy between those. So you don't have to go and configure one device after the other, all manually, all without seeing the bigger picture. So that's another thing we are investing into, how we solve that problem of end-to-end policy management across multiple security controls.
All right.
Yeah, and I think I'll add on to that just in terms of, again, this really comes down to, you know, what our customers are looking for and what do they need today, right? Some customers are very comfortable with, you know, on-prem FMC, you know, leveraging that for their firewall management. Other customers want a more, you know, SaaS-based product, right? They don't want the kind of operational overhead of upgrades, you know, keeping the power on, et cetera. You know, they want a SaaS product. And so we'll look to offer both to our customers ultimately, right? So that they can choose what best fits, you know, their organizational needs. And I think, you know, to what Andrew was saying, you know, how do we then, you know, look across, you know, the Cisco security portfolio in a sense that allows us to then, you know, whether it be applied policy or configurations, you know, across a customer's enterprise security suite, right? And then that's something certainly that we're going to lean into in the future.
Outstanding. Well, guys, I love hearing what we're doing. I love getting close to where the rubber meets the road, and it doesn't get much closer than this. So thank you all for joining us. I really appreciate your insights, especially Henry joining us from Forrester and giving us your outside perspective. So it's not all just Cisco. But everyone, I hope you've enjoyed the broadcast as well. I appreciate everybody coming out here, but I want to make sure that if you are interested in learning more, we have a website that you can go to visit. That's cisco.com/go/try-firewall. Cisco.com/go/try-firewall. Get you a whole lot of information on how you can get your fingers into it and get started of it. But thanks so much, everyone, for joining us on this episode of Cisco TV. We'll see you next time, and it won't be long.
Where will we be in 50 years? Let's go see. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Since its inception, CNN's been focused on getting breaking news to viewers as quickly as possible. We're 24/7. We're never off the air. We have bureaus all over the world. We don't know where a story is going to happen. We have to be able to allow our journalists to get the story out. You know, we envisioned at times that we would lose one of our facilities.
Breaking news.
But we never envisioned, even in a pandemic, that we might lose them all. We started a relationship with Cisco to do a better job in getting quality audio and video from our contributors to CNN. They couldn't make it into one of our key production centers. Something we set up for maybe 10 homes had to be optimized for hundreds of shots a week and thousands of shots a month. Our engineers and operations team worked with Cisco to scale this as quickly as we possibly could, to do whatever necessary and bring whatever tools we have to bring to tell the best story.